Hey guys, thought I'd do another recording here. I got some, finally got some video capture software on my new system after my old one had water dumped all over it. And I kind of lost everything on it that wasn't backed up, which was about a week's worth of work for those on YouTube, which don't keep up with what goes on Patreon. And I've got this little winter picture I'm doing, just a little something to work on for fun, and my safe for work Patreon. Don't want to keep ignoring that. I thought I'd talk today a little bit about how I think I don't like video games anymore, and this was a discussion I was having with a friend of mine. So I guess I'll go over some history. I'm 41. I've been playing games since the late 80s. We had even before that, we had an Atari in the house, but I was mostly a kid that played outside. And then we'd do the computer thing once, we had a Commodore 64, and we would play just anything because we were kids, you play whatever. And we never had a Nintendo in the house. We just weren't that. And then we got into PC gaming, and that's when I started finding games that would just absorb my soul. And there was a kind of a game that pulled you in and just fascinated you, that you would play for hundreds of hours, that you really began to look for in other titles. Probably the first game that ever did this to me. It just drew me in all respects. And this game you can find for free still today is Star Control 2. You can find it for free today, labeled the Urquan Masters. It's a game that's kind of has an interesting legal history. The current creators want to do a sequel to it, and the odd thing is when they split with Accolade, who published the game originally, Accolade retained the name Star Control as a trademark, whereas the original creators, Paul Reich and Fred Ford, retained the copyright to the source code and all the assets and lore to the game. So they could release the game, and they did release the game for free, not as Star Control 2, but the Urquan Masters. You can still find it on the internet today, and it's worth playing through. The game came out in 1992. Okay, and it was one of the first, I don't know if I'd call it an open world game. It was certainly an explorable adventure game. It did have a timer on it, so, and I know that's something that developers don't use anymore because it actually discourages really playing in the game for a long time. You just have a limit to how much you're ever going to play the game. And then, on into the 90s, I think we had like a Sega Genesis for a while, and didn't really do much with it, but it was okay. And then when it got into like real-time strategy games, Command and Conquer and stuff like that, and kind of got away from PC gaming for a long time. It was just as I was getting out on my own, it was getting expensive to keep up with, and got into consoles because they were cheaper and easier. So there I was playing consoles like a pleb, and I had my PlayStation and my Xbox and all that stuff. That was in the PS3, Xbox 360, like early Xbox 360, like before they had HDMI cables, for them, that kind of thing. And had fun with that for some time, just as a time kill after work. And by that point, I was self-employed, doing, what you see here. And my friend was a big Fallout fan, and he was like, "Hey, Fallout 3 is coming out. I'm really looking forward to it." And I'm like, "Fallout 3, huh?" Now this time I had been playing a lot of corridor shooting, first-person shooter games like Resistance: Fall of Man and Halo 3 and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, okay. You recommend it. You like it. I'll give this here Fallout a try." And it was my first like 3D role-playing game with an open world, and it swallowed my soul that way in that way that I miss. Where every day that I'm working on a project, I'm trying to finish a page, but all I'm thinking about is what I'm going to do when I get back in that game. And the reason why is because you exit, you sort of have a character that's kind of a blank slate. I mean, they have a history of growing up in a vault, but you get to determine what their attitude about stuff is. And more on that, when you exit the vault, you're just given a world to just roam, right? What other game gives you that? You can set off, and they give you a main quest to kind of nudge you over here towards Megaton. Well, the first time I played, I didn't go to Megaton. I was blown away by the fact that I just had a square grid that was a giant map to just run around in and scrounge. And so I explored the local suburb that was out there that was nuked all to hell. And then I found an elementary school full of raiders and was like trying to manage my ammunition while exploring it, while killing raiders and looting armor and stuff like that, and watching my character kind of level up a bit. Then I wandered over to Erifu and did that whole vampire thing that they had going on there. And I was like, this is not a game. This is not a shooter. This is a world, and I have a character in it. I have a character who lives in this world. And from that point on, that was it. I was hooked. I couldn't tolerate playing shooters anymore. I mean, I guess I could, and it was fun enough sometimes, but I became a Bethesda fan. And to give you some greater clarity, that level of explorative freedom was something that I actually missed in New Vegas. Now, New Vegas had a great story, and the game did open up as you traveled and leveled and gained experience and unlocked parts of the world. But it was a much more managed and gated appearance. And when people talk about some of the things that they don't like as compared to what they do like with a Bethesda game, it's that initial freedom once you leave a starting area. That's kind of what they miss. And for all the great story that Vegas had, and I wish that Bethesda would up its game on that mark, I kind of missed being able to wander in any direction and have that sort of self-made adventure feeling. Although there was plenty of that in New Vegas, so it still felt really great to play. And then I'd never played a fantasy game that I was really super interested in before Skyrim, and the only reason I gave it a shot was because it was made by the people who made Fallout 3. And I'd never heard of Bethesda before. I'd never played Oblivion or Morrowind or really had any interest in it before, just by appearance. And I'm one of these guys that kind of judges things by appearance sometimes. So I found Skyrim to be endlessly fascinating. I had all the books on the game I ended up downloading to my phone so I could read them in my spare time. I was absorbing the entire game's like lore and culture and everything like that. Eventually I went back and played Oblivion, although I never finished it. And I tried going back and playing Morrowind. And when you go from those games to Morrowind, and a lot of people cite it as their favorite. And if you played it first, I mean, I understand. I kind of read up on the lore of Morrowind, but trying to play it, it was like from outer space, man. That game, and of course, you see where everything germinated from in a game like Morrowind at first, but it was that freedom of being in Skyrim and playing how I wanted. That being able to say, on this game, when I load from level 1, I'm going to play a thief character. Not doing the Thieves Guild quests character. I'm going to do where I pick out a building and I'm like, I'm going to break into that building and I'm going to steal stuff. I'm going to sneak when people are away from here and they're off doing whatever. I'm going to sneak in and just steal everything that isn't nailed down that I can carry and sneak out with. That's an option in a game like that. And it's something that I miss, and I miss it in the respect that I don't know any other game that kind of gives you that level of freedom. Sense, like in the sense that even if they do or come close to it, they kind of assign you a character. Right? Here's your character. Here's your character's emotional investment in this character's story. Here's the name of your character. here's what you're going to do, you know what I mean? And your character cares about the main plot this much because of X, Y, and Z, because they have a pre-existing relationship and all these other things. And I've played these games and I have fun in these games, but I'm at the point where I'm tired of those games. I found myself playing Red Dead 2, and I found myself just kind of, after a couple days, just kind of putting it down. And it struck me as strange, And I told my friend about it, and he was like, yeah, I've been playing this game. And I said, yeah, that doesn't look interesting to me. I would have played that a few years ago. I would have at least gone through it once. I remember going through The Witcher 3 twice, and just sort of doing the broad strokes in about the same order, because that's what you do in The Witcher 3, because you are really tied into that narrative. There's no loading up The Witcher 3 and saying, this time I'm going to be a mage or a magic. No, there's nothing like that. You're a Witcher. You're Geralt. You have to find Ciri. That's what you're doing. So I just kind of felt like I don't feel like playing any more of these games ever again. I didn't feel like playing Red Dead. I felt myself going, well, I liked Horizon Zero Dawn. It's very much in the vein of sort of the way The Witcher 3 was. Everything is level gated, and the world is sort of revealed to you piecemeal based on your progress through the story and the experience that you earn, as opposed to being openly and freely explorable from the outset. And I remember saying, well, I guess they'll do a sequel to that game. Maybe I'll get it. Even though I loved the gameplay, I thought it was amazing. The best part about that game is stalking these beasts and figuring out, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to set traps here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then then the plan goes to hell, and you're like, oh Jesus, and you end up having to improvise on the spot, which is part of the real excitement of the game. That I found the gameplay to be really one of the stronger suits. The world concept was also amazing. The writing, the individual writing itself was but there's things I can overlook for the gameplay that I want. And I remember thinking the other day, I'm shocked that nobody has copied that Skyrim formula. Everyone sort of went open world at that point. They just started putting giant maps in their games, but nobody started making a world that was essentially a substrate for an adventure you were going to have, right? As a character that you made yourself, that you could determine things and have fun that had nothing to do with a quest telling you to do something. And of course, this not only makes the game malleable, but that in turn means it's very moddable. And of course, you see the modding community burst out. And I realized that a game like that isn't economical. A gaming company, maybe they're flattered from a creative standpoint if they learn that someone has 2,000 hours into a game they paid for once $60 5 years ago. But that's almost economically not what you want, because you want them on a new game. You want them playing something else, and most people probably would. But the person, the person who clings to that particular game because it's giving them the only kind of adventure that they really like right now, and that is that you get to play the character of your choosing. You get to have that character's story live in your mind. You get to take a little bit of your own creativity into the game, and as well as experience other people's creativity and writing, such as it is in a Bethesda game, which isn't much. So yeah, and I think that's why people, and I'm here mainly to talk about Bethesda, because they had such a huge impact on my sort of gaming when I turned into an adult. People are apprehensive because I think they want Elder Scrolls 6 to be kind of like that newish Skyrim openness, and I think they're afraid that it might not be, because they're seeing Bethesda make some really bad decisions lately. You see the decision they made with Fallout 76. You see some of the bad decisions they made with Fallout 4. Now, to their credit, at least I saw Todd Howard say that a lot of those things were mistakes. The dialogue limitations, the voiced protagonist, these were mistakes, and they probably wouldn't do it again. And I'm kind of happy for that, that, okay, well, at least they're not completely clueless, although they are pulling some weird stunts. And it's a little disheartening when you think that they can get away with a game like Fallout 76 being as shitty as it is and a release date as it is. And I know there's people having fun in it, and I'm not knocking you for being able to. I'm just saying that as a full price Bethesda release, this is not acceptable. And we have to be able to admit that, right? We have to be able, and seeing it fail, seeing it get the reviews, because it's not what their core fans really wanted, and it's not what gamers who traditionally aren't Bethesda fans want. So what is the Bethesda fan, and what do they want? Well, they are the fan that can excuse, and to some degree, a bad narrative in exchange for a game that's really fun to mod and play. I mean, let's just be real with what we're talking about here, and to see them get away from that, to see them give you a tightly defined character in Fallout 4, tighter than what they normally would give you in a game, is a little worrying, and seeing them sort of talk about Starfield like, well, it's a very different game, but you can definitely tell we did it. And it's like, oh, I hope that's not a bad thing. To see them cling to old technology in such a way that, I'm not a graphic snob at all, but to see them cling to their old technology and just keep trying to improve it to such a way that their games feel and play in a very dated manner compared to other game companies who make the kind, giant worlds, is not a pleasant experience. And it's disappointing because The Witcher 3, as fun as it was not a replacement for Skyrim. It's not a game where I can play this character this time and then I can play this other kind of character later, right? And it is surprising to me that nobody has seized in on that's why people still play Skyrim and still mod it, and it still lives on their hard drives, right? Even though the stories don't hold up, the graphics don't hold up, although you can tweak those and turn the knobs a bit. I had with modding, I had a character that just, one of the funnest characters I ever played, never did a single quest. She was, I had an alternate start loaded. She was just a Khajiit who was attacked and left for dead by the side of the road. And when you choose that beginning, you wake up next to like a dead horse and a sacked cart and some dead people, and you're like, oh. And then her goal was to just sort of survive. I had survival mods laid in, survive the cold weather, eat, build a tent, sew some fur armor out of the animals that she killed in Hunterborn, and just sort of live off the land. And then she began to delve. She began to delve into caves and dungeons, and it's a struggle at low level, without any kind of assistance. And I had combat mods too loaded, so it was even more of a challenge in a way. Just delving into caves and treasure hunting, finding, where there's scraping up gold from here and there, finding weapons and treasure that she could use and sell to passing caravans, never going into a city because the Khajiit aren't allowed in cities, they're not trusted. This was an entire character story that played out in a load of Skyrim that is not an option for any other game. The developers never designed this. They never thought that you would play a character like this when they made it way back in the day. But here it is being played, right? And it's like the people, the passionate community's creativity all coming into one, and then your own sort of creativity and imagination added on top of it. And I know it's not economical, and I know that everyone thinks that in order for a game to be Game of the Year territory, we're going to need that amazing story that we then assign to the player. We assign you this story to be invested in. And because we want you to talk about how good our writing is and how much you love us, or how much you love the narrative. If we can sell that emotional investment to your character, it'll translate to you being emotionally invested, kind of like what you get when you watch a film, right? That's kind of what everyone's going for, and so you end up with named characters. You end up with games that are great, but you'll play them once. You know what I mean? You'll keep your save around so that when some DLC comes out, you'll play that too, right? And I think I found myself tired of those. I don't think anyone's ever going to make a game for me ever again. And I'm glad Fallout 76 is failing, because even if you do like multiplayer games, this game was shoddily done and it was mismanaged from the beginning. And even though I hope the best for Bethesda, to see them fail like this, you kind of warn them and you go, I don't know. And then you see them get a little bit of comeuppance, and you're like, it's sad to see it, and you don't like it, but because you want them to succeed, but you realize that, look, we can overlook a lot when it comes to dated graphics and performance and engines and stuff like that, and you have a robust fan base that backs you up, because they can do things with your games they can't. No other studio is even trying to make a game that you can do as much in with customization and modding the way Bethesda is, right? No one's even trying. No one's trying to make a game that is the next Skyrim. They're just adding gigantic maps to their already tight narratives and predefined characters. And I'm not interested in multiplayer whatsoever. I love immersion, and I know that the first thing that kills immersion is the presence of some other guy who, he can't come up with a lore name, so he just comes up with an idiot name, and there he is, and there it is, raping my eyeballs with his stupid hopping MMO pet. Like, why do you have a spider monkey following you around? What is that? And of course, you find yourself just running errands in games like that, and I have no interest in running errands. So I don't think I like video games anymore, and even good ones. I don't care. I don't want to run around and play in them. I don't want to progress a character that someone else made. I don't know why I feel this way suddenly, whereas before it would have been a no big deal to just play Red Dead Redemption 2 for 12, 13, 20, 50 hours just running around and killing animals and being lectured to about the evils of the white man, or whatever that game was doing. But I don't tolerate it anymore. I'd rather just sit back and watch a movie and drink a scotch and have a cigar or something like that. I don't know. I'm 41 now, and I guess that's where I am, and no one's going to make a game for me. Everyone's going to try to find the next Fortnite, right? Every shareholder meeting, speaking of cigars, is going to be some guy with a big cigar saying, here's the next big thing, baby, we got to do this. Or you're going to have these Blizzard-like fiascos, where they're going to try to present it to their core PC audience, and they're going to get excoriated. I mean, oh my God, that was such an incredible thing. And the one thing I'm going to give Bethesda credit for is they appear to understand at least that aspect. They appear to know that they can't just try to tide people over with a multiplayer game that's well out of their wheelhouse without bringing up the fact that they're working on the game that everyone wants, right? Even though it's not going to come for Christ. It's going to be over a decade between Elder Scrolls releases, probably their most anticipated franchise ever, and you think there's a conflict at Bethesda now between the business side and the creative side, such as it is. I don't think the creative side's that great, but I would rather sit through a single player game that I can mold and twist and adventure in as my own self-made character, even if the main quest was written by I forget his name, but he's a bad writer. He's the guy who wrote the main quest for Fallout 4, and I think he got his job because he designed the main quest, or came up with the quest for the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion. and people liked that quest, so he ended up sort of being assigned things that are, I don't know, his writing is just not good. It's not layered. It's not, there's no options for experiencing it in different ways based on how unique your particular character build is. That's not an option. So I would rather suffer through a plot line from him as my own self-made character than play a character that's assigned to me by a writer at another studio in a great story. That sounds funny, but that's that's just where I am right now. I'd rather suffer through that bad writing with my own character in a world that I can control or at least twist to my own adventures than play a multiplayer piece of shit game that is unfortunately unfinished. But I mean, even if it was finished, I wouldn't want to play it. I don't want to play with other people. I don't want to have other people running around. I can have fun watching a shitty movie with my friends. If I'm with my friends, I'd rather have a drink and a cigar and talk about stuff rather than running around in a world. Although I know it can be fun, and I've seen people in playthroughs have fun. I'm not surprised that the game isn't selling very well, and it's not doing too well. So anyway, I guess that's where I am on video games now, and I sort of just wanted an excuse to ramble while I worked on this and get some of these shades out of the way for tonight. Anyway, I think I'm done talking about this for now. If anyone knows of a video game that isn't an MMO, that isn't multiplayer, that isn't ugly as shit like Kenshi, or opaque and weirdly difficult to get into, if anyone knows of any kind of game that's under development or anything I can get excited about, that you make your own character, you decide what that character specializes in, the world is beautiful, you know what I mean, that it's you can explore and roam in, even if it's kind of level gated, I can kind of tolerate, you kind of get desperate for the kind of play that you're really looking forward to. If anyone knows of a game like that that's either under development or has even been made that completely slid under the radar, I mean, feel free to leave comments. I guess that's all I have to say about that. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. This is going to go on my Safe for Work Patreon page when I'm finished with it. Just a little cutesy poo here for my my cool Safe for Work patrons. So that's it for me. Y'all take care, and bye-bye.